Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 8 breakdown for Versus Gaming 1K. They did this weekend for the One Piece card game. This is also an event that they streamed, and that is linked in the description as well as in this web page, which is also linked in the description with all of our deck lists today too. So 27 players, it was in person, and they had a top 8 cut, which they just did a top 4 split for the prizing there as well. And if you guys are interested in more tournaments in Florida, that's the area they are based out of, they are going to be also hosting the large One Piece 5K tournament at CEO, which is this huge fighting game tournament in Florida as well. So it'll be the weekend of the 23rd to the 25th in Daytona Beach. So if you guys are in that area and you're interested for kind of a higher cap tournament for One Piece 512, and I know a lot of people have been wanting to do more One Piece tournaments, so I think this is a good alternative for people who need another outlet for that as well. And I believe set 3 will be out for this tournament too. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but just another tournament for you guys who are interested. And again, shoutouts to Versus Game there. But going on into this breakdown here, we did have from the leader side 7 Smokers, 5 Newgates, 5 Zoros, 3 Kinemons, and then one of Kid, Emporio, Magellan, Luffy starter, Zephyr, Trafalgar Law, and as well as a Don Quixote Doflamingo. So somewhat what we're seeing, honestly, a lot of Smoker. I'm kind of shocked by how many people showed up with Smoker, and especially if we look at how many people brought it, and then the top cut of 3 Newgates, 3 Zoros, a Kinemon, and a Smoker as well. Kind of silly there. Like most of the Newgates topped, most of the Zoros topped, and only one of the 7 Smokers topped as well. The one out of 3 Kinemons topping is actually kind of pretty standard for that too. But really interesting to see the breakdown differences of what people brought and what people are playing. So in general, I think Red Aggression is a very, very strong deck archetype still. And if you guys want any chance to kind of do well or counter the format, I think what you have to do is you have to say, you know what, I need to have a 50-50 or better matchup against Edward Newgate or Zoro, or else I'm going to have a kind of a hard time going up with it. So we're going to look at the top placing list for each one of these leaders. Honestly, we're going to look at all the top 4 and then one of these Smokers that did get into that top 8 as well. So going into our top 4, we do have, this is Whitton's top 4 Kinemon. And I kind of like what this build is looking like. I've been trying Kinemon a lot, and I've been bouncing between Kinemon and Kid myself, just because I'm not sure which one is better. I'm starting to lean that Kid might be a little bit stronger, but I do like what this build does for you. Specifically, when I ran it previously, I was doing only Wano Country, but I think you still need to get the card draw from Bonnie and stuff. The only issue, like, I find is that, like, if you play like how you would traditionally play it with trying to find a lot of supernovas and everything, your leader's effect just kind of doesn't do anything anymore. He's just a green leader, which is still pretty strong in this card game, but you don't want to put like a bunch of 1-drops on the board, because then you just kind of let yourself not being able to get that cost reduction. But I do like the idea of running the Yamato. I think this is a very, very strong card in a lot of ways. I see people not running it, and I think that's a little bit of a mistake, just because it is still a 1K counter, which is fine. Additionally, just this does pressure so much, pressure on your opponent. And if you're like, normally early game, I like to either do a lot of board control with our Kikus and our Yamatos, and then if that doesn't kind of work out, then I can put my own 5-drop Yamato out, which means that if I attack into their leader, they're going to have to either get a lot of cards out of their hand or get lose a card or 2 in their, or I guess 2 cards into the life, and it's banished as well, which means you don't get to add it to your hand, which is strong. Other than that, I think 7-drop Kid is a really necessary card in this deck. I think 2 is the general ratio most people are looking at, and just to kind of have like a backup for the 8-drop Odin. I've been running this at 4, and I think everyone else is pretty much running it at 4 at this time. You just need to see it. If you see this card on curve, like, your chances of winning just skyrocket in my mind. So even if it can be stuck in your hand like later in the game, you kind of just need to see this on curve just to have a chance against some of these other decks. Like, having an 8K swing twice every turn from turn 4 onwards is pretty strong, especially since if you go first, you can cheat this out a turn earlier as long as you have the setup for it too. So I think that's really, really good for it as well. But that is my kind of quick opinion there too. X-Drake, I'd almost want to like try to pressure into a second copy of this, just because it's a good on 5 kind of ability. Trafalgar Law 2 makes a lot of sense because it does help you recycle some abilities that you sometimes need to do, and then also Paradise Waterfall. I think I like Paradise more than Punk Gibson in this deck. You're kind of like specifically having a hard time having two open a lot of the time, and you almost always want to use all your Dawn, and like one Dawn staying open is sometimes even tricky for kind of how particular and how strict you are with where your Dawn is used. So I think Paradise Waterfall makes sense there, and it's a little bit better for like saving like a Yamato or something, so you can attack with it again the next turn too. So that is the list there. Congrats again to Whitton for their top 4. And then next up we have Jackson, Baum, and we also just looking at Ryan Fletcher's list as well, since they're pretty similar for what they're doing. I think it's pretty understood what these decks do in the long run. I think Ryan's difference is that they're running Curly to Dan, which I do like in this build, in the sense that you do have a lot of 1-drops, and that your second turn going, like Nami going first is great, so Curly to Dan going second is pretty strong too. I feel like, just because you don't have a lot of cards that you need to find like into the, like, it just gives you something to do turn 2. Like turn 2 in this deck most of the time is playing Nami if you find it, so having like an extra copy of something to help you get that additional card advantage I think is strong there too. This is really good for this deck, and then trying to find your 4-drops to play them out, and even like a couple 5-drop King Doos to get that pressure on curve. Monkey D. Luffy Rush is, this card's always been really strong in red, but particularly right now I think this is a fantastic card in Newgate. Specifically, just any card that is like a 6k just means that your opponent has to either choose on hitting your leader or your character cards, and if everything's a 6k, then it's just very, very strong. It's kind of hard to remove any of these cards at the same time, right? And being able to keep them on the board means you get another attack the next turn, and it just kind of goes off from there. I'm really surprised also, by the way, that it's a 3-2 split of Radical Beam and Guard Point. I think Radical Beam is almost always better, right? So I'm not sure why you're doing 3 and 2. 4 and 3, maybe a little excessive on there. I usually it's like 4 and then max of 2 guard points for me. I don't want to run like more than 6 event cards, because they can be kind of cloggy in my hand at times, but they also do save you a lot of the time. So it's kind of a hard balance for me there. Other than that, we've been seeing that the Straw Hat version of Whitebeard is just way better than like the original archetype, and we're gonna have to see how that looks in set 3 when that comes up as well, especially since we don't have like the Boat Beard as well, since that will be banned on the arrival of set 3 as well. But again, this is Jackson's list and this is Ryan's list, and congrats to both players there. Next up, we have our Zoro. So this is Kolton Larson's version. And I think Zoro's been getting a little bit worse every week. Not terribly. I think it's still a very strong leader, but I think it can have a hard time against Newgate. And by and large, I think if you want to play like a really aggressive deck, Newgate's just almost strictly better in a lot of ways. You just put a lot more pressure, and the fact that you get more, card draw and cycle inherently because of how the leader works, you're in a really good spot. However, against a lot of other matchups, just the fact that you're able to get so many 5k swings out efficiently just means that every time you attack, you either do damage or you're making your opponent use 1 card out of their hand, which is a lot of good recursion there too. I like the Magra. I think this needs to be like 2 or 3. I like it a lot, and the fact that it helps you like give power, just like for 1, give something power, which is really, really good. Like your Navi becoming a 5k for free is great. And then like Makino does the same thing because it gives plus 3k on its activate mains, but you do essentially just play it and then you rest it. So I think that's strong there. Vista and Robin for the early game as well. And the biggest thing for this deck is that like if your opponent has like 1s and 2-drops that you can then use to get rid of your own 1-drops efficiently, these kind of help keep those clean and help you get a lot of advantage there. And then Radical Beam, Jet Pistol, pretty standard, and then also Newgate, because this is a really silly card in pretty much any red deck right now. It's very, very strong. So this is Kolton's list. Congrats there. And then to wrap it on up, we do have this last list that I didn't set up properly. My bad. But here it is. This is the list of Brandon, who played Smoker, the top placing Smoker out of the 7 that showed up, which is, again, when about a fourth of the players are playing this list leader and only one of them gets the top 8. It's a little bit concerning to me. I think Smoker's really fair. In general, I think, it's fair. Fair is a really good word for it. It doesn't do anything super crazy. There is some like good removal for this deck, but most of the removal comes at the cost that you have to go like an additional -1 based on like discarding from Sakazuki, or using like the Monkey D. Garp effect still. You still have to trash a card from your hand to use it, which kind of stinks too. But Kuzan, I think at 3 makes a lot of sense. You sometimes just don't have time against some of these faster decks to even play it. So like if you have 2 or 3 in hand, like 2 in hand just seems really cloggy at times. As much as you want to get 2 on board, and get like removal for anything, it's asking for a little bit much, I think. Impact Wave still just is like the best event card in the deck a lot of times. Like it's so good at like defense and can get like a double defense, especially like if your opponent has like a bunch of like 1-drops and 2-drop blockers. You can use this to get out of an attack and get rid of one of their blockers, which I think is great. And then the rest is pretty understood there. The Garp 2-drop is nice for what it is. I've been liking this card a little bit more. I've been trying to play it on board sometimes, even though it's a little bit tricky to get the KO with it. If you set up correctly, it feels really great, and just kind of everything else. So I think, again, Black is really fun. It has a lot of good sequencing. It does have an issue where you have to find the right pieces of removal at the right time. Otherwise, your hand's kind of cloggy. The way you play is a little bit less efficient, and you kind of lose a lot of momentum because of it as well. So that is Brandon's list there, and that is going to be the video for us today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Again, thanks to Versus Games for sending me the data for their event, and make sure to check out their 5K in Daytona Beach at the end of June. So that should be a lot of fun. Should be, again, I think it's set 3, which is going to be like a newer meta, and I'm looking forward to seeing this event too. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.